I'm President Deniz A. Erdal. Thank you for joining us for the 4th episode of the Fireside Cast. Today, I'm joined in the studio by my Chief of Staff, Ben Underwood. Thanks for joining the program, Ben.
Well, thanks for having me, Dennis. I'm glad to be here.
So, today, at school, our candidate for state representative, one of the candidates for state representative, Mr. Yasinoff, came to our school, and he talked about some of the issues that he would propose if he were elected as our state representative. What did you think of some of his ideas?
Well, Dennis, I was rather surprised. He seemed to take a moderate stance on most of the pertinent issues, and I was predicting that he'd take a hard Republican stance. For example, on marijuana, he favors medical legalization of marijuana.
Mm-hmm. And medical marijuana was legalized last year by a referendum, I believe.
Yes, but he wants to uphold that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, he was, in this case, he's taking more of a traditional Republican approach, but he'd like to keep marijuana off recreational usage.
And also on the issue of gun control, I believe he's one of the few Republican candidates in the state of Ohio to not be endorsed by the NRA because, to quote Mr. Yasinoff, he supports, quote, common sense gun legislation, and that includes a ban on assault weapons and bump stocks.
He was also seeking that we follow the 7-point plan that I think was proposed by Kasich,
Mm-hmm.
but it might have been Mike DeWine, and that's calls for background checks on all gun purchases through the NCIB.
Yes, I believe it was the governor. And speaking of the governor, I know Mr. Yasinoff, he worked for a while on Governor Kasich's presidential bid, and he worked in the Taft administration as well, back in the early 2000s under Governor Taft. And our other candidate for state representative is Mrs. Russo, who is the Democrat running in the election to represent us. And frankly, I don't see quite a lot of difference between their two campaigns in this battle because Mr. Yasinoff is quite to the center. He's very far from, I guess, some of the more recent Republican policies, such as the strict pro-gun laws that they've been proposing, and in terms of marijuana, and also with the tax code. Although he said that he supports simplifying the tax code, he didn't necessarily say that he supports lowering taxes.
That's essentially what he told us when I heard him speak. He said that he isn't necessarily for lower taxes, but he would like to lower taxes for the middle class. And the way he wants to do that is by closing loopholes. And he thinks that that will bring money back into Ohio.
Yes. Though, I guess one of the issues which he supports, which might prove to be controversial, is his support for certain charter schools. I know that there has been a lot of criticism of ETCOT, and a lot of students weren't getting the necessary education, and the state is trying to get the money back.
Yes, so that's one of the issues where Rousseau and Yasinoff differ. Rousseau is not a proponent of the charter schools, but actually what's happening with ECOT right now is that they're actually shut down and all their assets were sold in an auction recently. Rousseau is not a big fan of the charter schools and wants to send the money to public schools.
That's right. She said public dollars should go towards public schools, and also Mrs. Russo supports requiring criminal background checks on all gun sales, and also including unlicensed ones, and closing existing gaps in the enforcement, and also reporting all purchases and comparing them with information on the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, or the NICS. And as you said previously, Mr. Yasinov also said that he supports increasing the gun restrictions.
Yeah, Mr. Yasinov is also saying that he wants to ban the assault rifles and some of the more dangerous weapons that people
and
have.
increase background checks.
Yes.
So we were talking about John Kasich a bit earlier, and fortunately for him, he's term limited, and so he's going to have to be replaced this year. Although, fun fact, in the state of Ohio, there is, in our state constitution, there's a law, there's a section that states that a governor can't serve more than two consecutive terms. However, a governor can serve more than two non-consecutive terms. So, for example, I believe there was a governor back in the 50s who served 2 terms and then skipped a term and then served 2 more terms. And so, an interesting loophole in our state constitution. But so there's a very tight race for the governorship right now between DeWine and Cordray, and they both formerly served as state attorney general, and Cordray also served as the head of the Consumer Protection Agency, and he was appointed by President Obama. What's your take on these 2 candidates?
Well, what we're seeing right now is with DeWine, he's much more well known. He was the Attorney General for 8 years compared to Cordray's 2 years. And also there's a poll that came out from an Ohio university, not the Ohio University, but a university here in Ohio, that said that Cordray was unknown to about 40-some% of Ohioans. And, well, I heard an analysis that would change because Cordray is having a lot of advertisements right now. And also, DeWine is having advertisements about Cordray, which is giving Cordray some publicity.
That's right. And I know that the DeWine campaign has been putting out a lot of negative ads regarding Cordray. I've seen tons of attack ads. As a matter of fact, just yesterday I counted 5. But I guess this race will get very tight as the election nears. We're almost a little more than a month away from the elections, and so I think it's going to be interesting which way this race goes. Also, Sherrod Brown, he's running for re-election as our senator, though as of recently the Gallup poll has him up ahead, and Ohio is listed as leaning blue. But last week, Cordray and DeWine had a debate in Dayton, I believe. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so the debate last week, it was really interesting. They discussed a lot of issues. They discussed ECOT, they discussed opioids, gun control, and various issues such as those. And the debate got surprisingly heated for rather calm politicians. One of the more inflaming things that Cordray said is, asking you to be in charge of the opioid epidemic is like asking for navigational advice from the captain of the Titanic. Now this was a pretty popular thing. It got there were a lot of posts about it on Twitter. And this comment was in reference to that DeWine has been the Attorney General for 8 years, and he has not done very much to fix the opioid epidemic.
That's right, and also, um, this was, I believe, the first debate, and as you previously said, about 40% of Ohioans don't know much about Cordray, and so I don't know if that was really too good of a first impression, immediately jumping. However, on the flip side, DeWine has been launching fierce attack ads all over YouTube, attacking Cordray. As a matter of fact, I saw 5 on my phone just yesterday. But it would be quite a win for the Democrats if Ohio went for the Democrats. But I don't know if Cordray has got his name out necessarily enough to be able to win this race.
I think right now he doesn't, but he's getting his voice out enough. Even with the negative attack ads might actually be helping him because they're giving him the publicity that he needs. And also, another reason people might side with Cordray versus DeWine is that DeWine is kind of a career politician. He's had elected offices for some 40 years. And then Cordray, he's a little bit younger, a little bit of a newcomer, and also he has the added benefit of working for the Consumer Protection Agency, which is a major win for the citizens. People would like that.
A lot of people might look at him and say, here's a guy who was fighting for us, the little people, against the Wall Street. But like you said, DeWine, he's a career politician. He's been in state politics for a long time, and everybody knows him, whether it's good or bad. But with Cordray, I guess if he can get out the right image, if he can get his name out in a good way, I think he might be able to carry the state.
Another question that this brings up is what Kasich will do after he leaves his office. He ran for president in 2016 and lost. And the question arises, will he run again in 2020? What's your take on this, Deniz?
Well, it's very uncommon for a sitting president to see a primary challenger, especially from within his own party, someone he has defeated before. And I don't think we've seen this in a very long time. And it would be quite a spectacle, though I do think that much of the Republican Party now is behind Donald Trump. There was the Never Trump movement, especially in late 2016, right around the convention and afterwards. You had Republicans like Mitt Romney who were saying never Trump, but then right after the election, Mitt Romney was caught dining with Donald Trump in New York. And so I think at this point, a large chunk of the Republicans have rounded up around President Trump. However, you still have the Republicans like Mr. Yasinoff. And today, for example, one of the students in my group, in the group I was in, asked Mr. Yasinoff if he was supportive of the president's policies, and he said, "I'm a Kasich Republican, not a Trump Republican." And so I think Kasich might get a bit of support in a primary bid against the President of the United States.
Going back to that comment about what you said that Yasinoff said on Wednesday about how there's two different sides of the Republicans. You have the Kasich Republicans and then the Trump Republicans. I think that's really interesting because the Republican Party has been kind of dividing in the past 2 years. And I'm interested to see which type of Republican will win. Will it be more of a Trump Republican or a Kasich? Where will the Republican Party be going? Where do you think it'll be going?
Well, I think so long as President Trump is in office, I think the Republican Party will be sliding more to the right. And you'll have a lot of moderates who are who have to choose between either adjusting their agenda or moving along with the rest of the gang. And so I think this might hurt Republicans in the long run because their voter base, frankly, is objectively shrinking. A lot of their votes come from older white people. However, their numbers are decreasing, and you have a lot more minority voters who are coming out to vote now. And especially considering the recent policy measures the administration implemented with the children, I think you'll see that a lot of the minorities are really angry, and that's causing more of them to vote and vote against the Republicans. And so I think moving more to the right might hurt the Republicans. If they had went more in 2016, if they went more in the direction of Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz, something like that, they might have stood a better chance. But now I think they're fighting a losing battle.
Last Saturday was the annual homecoming dance here at UAHS. Mm-hmm. Did you attend, and if so, what's your opinion on it?
No, I haven't attended any school dance, as a matter of fact.
So on Instagram, I saw that, I didn't go either, but I saw that a lot of people, and I've also heard that a lot of people preferred it over last year's gnome theme.
I have heard that from a lot of people as well, that this year's 80s theme was better than Gnome Coming. I think the consensus among students was that Gnome Coming was not that good of an idea. But I think a lot of students think that this year Homecoming was organized pretty well by student council with the added games and more events, and also with the DJ.
Speaking of school dances, what do you have in store for the winter dance coming up?
Well, for the winter dance, the class officers and I we're planning to let the students decide on what winter is going to be. So we're planning on putting out a poll in the near future to get a general idea of what the students think.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to that poll.
Thank you for joining the conversation, Ben.
Thank you, Dennis. It's been a pleasure.
Major funding for the Fireside cast has been provided by Serpent Cinematography,
Thunderstruck Studios,
TV Productions,
and by James Underwood. James is running to be Hastings' next 8th grade class president. His campaign website is www.jamesunderwood.net.
And from contributions from listeners like you. Thank you.